Sunday morning at New Dawn Fellowship. I sat wedged between my husband Noah on the left and my mother-in-law Margaret on the right. When Pastor Collins paused his sermon, he looked directly at me and said something that made the entire congregation hold their breath. 3 minutes later, the church treasurer whispered in my ear, the truth a contract had been signed to clear the way for my accident. Tonight. I stood up from the pew, excusing myself to the restroom, and began my counterattack. My name is Evelyn Hart, 32 years old, and I work the night shift as a surgical nurse at St. Braden Hospital. That Sunday morning, I should have been sleeping off my 12-hour shift, but here I was, sitting in the third row of New Dawn Fellowship, trapped between my husband Noah and his mother Margaret. The sanctuary smelled of old oak and lemon polish. Hymnal pages rustled like autumn leaves as the congregation settled. My eyelids felt heavy, weighted down by exhaustion, but Margaret's presence beside me was like an electric fence impossible to ignore. She sat ramrod straight, her navy dress pristine, her graying hair pulled into a bun so tight it seemed to stretch her features into a permanent expression of disapproval. Noah shifted beside me, his structural engineer's hands folded neatly in his lap. He'd insisted we attend today, even knowing I'd just finished a brutal shift dealing with a multi-car accident that had kept our OR running until 5:45 a.m. Pastor Collins stood at the pulpit, his voice rising and falling in familiar cadences about forgiveness and family. Then, suddenly, he stopped mid-sentence. The silence was so abrupt that even the crying baby in the back row went quiet. "Before we continue," Pastor Collins said, his eyes finding mine with laser precision, "I'd like to ask for special prayers for Evelyn Hart, who will be facing some significant legal difficulties in the coming days." The congregation turned to stare, 200 pairs of eyes boring into me, my heart hammered against my ribs. Legal difficulties. What legal difficulties? Whispers rippled through the pews like wind through wheat. Margaret's hand found mine, squeezing it in what appeared to be a gesture of comfort, but her manicured nails dug into my skin, and when I tried to pull away, she held tighter. "We stand with our sister in Christ during this challenging time," Pastor Collins continued, his tone grave. "Sometimes the Lord tests us in unexpected ways." Noah turned to me, confusion clouding his brown eyes. "Ev, what's he talking about?" Before I could respond that I had absolutely no idea, Ethan Rowe, the church treasurer, slipped into our row from behind. The former military police officer moved with practiced stealth, his footsteps silent on the worn carpet. He leaned close enough that I could smell his aftershave, something sharp and clean that cut through the dusty church air. A piece of paper pressed into my palm. His whisper was barely audible. "Don't go home tonight. Check your brakes. Someone's been paid." My phone vibrated in my purse. Still reeling, I glanced down at the notification. "Ridgeway Auto. Your brake maintenance has been completed as scheduled. Thank you for choosing our express service." I hadn't scheduled any maintenance. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. The hymnal in the rack before me seemed to swim in and out of focus. Margaret's grip on my hand tightened further, and she leaned in, her breath hot against my ear. "You look pale, dear," she murmured. "Perhaps you should get some air. You know how these night shifts affect your judgment. Makes you paranoid, seeing things that aren't there." The words were honeyed, but something in her tone made my skin crawl. I looked at her, really looked at her. Behind her concerned expression, I caught something else, a glimmer of satisfaction. Anticipation Pastor Collins had resumed his sermon, but I couldn't focus on the words. My mind raced, connecting dots I didn't want to connect. The life insurance policy Margaret had pressured us to increase just last month. The way she'd insisted I was the one who needed the coverage, not Noah. All that driving in the dark, dear, so dangerous. Ethan had returned to his seat behind us, but I felt his presence like a protective shield. The note in my hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I unfolded it carefully, shielding it from Margaret's view with my hymnal. The message was brief, written in Ethan's precise military script. Security footage. Margaret and unknown male. Church parking lot. 11:30 p.m. yesterday. Money exchanged. Get out now. Use side exit. My office. Evidence copied. The choir began. Amazing grace. Their voices soaring to the vaulted ceiling. Margaret finally released my hand to find her hymnal, and I saw the angry red crescents her nails had left in my palm. I need to use the restroom, I whispered to Noah, already sliding past his knees. Service is almost over, Margaret hissed. Can't you wait? Night shift, I said, playing into her narrative. You know how it affects me. I walked down the side aisle, feeling every eye in the congregation tracking my movement. My sensible flats made soft sounds against the hardwood floor. Behind me, I heard Margaret whisper something to Noah, her tone urgent. The moment I pushed through the sanctuary doors, my walk became a run. The church basement hallway stretched before me, fluorescent lights humming overhead. My mind reeled backward through the past year, searching for signs I'd missed. How had my life with Noah become a chess game where his mother moved all the pieces? It started when Noah lost his job at Brennan Engineering 14 months ago. The company downsized, and younger engineers with lower salaries survived the cut. For 6 months, he sent out resumes, attended interviews, and came home defeated. Our savings dwindled. The mortgage on our modest 2-story in Ashford Heights grew heavier each month. Margaret swooped in like a savior. Let Mother help, she'd said, writing a check that covered 3 months of expenses. But her generosity came with strings invisible at first, then thick as sailing rope. Every financial decision needed her input. Every major purchase required a family meeting at Hart House, her sprawling Victorian on Elm Street. You work such dangerous hours. Evelyn, she'd mentioned over dinner 2 months ago. All that driving on dark roads at 3, 4 in the morning. We should really look into better life insurance. The Silver Prairie Mutual agent had come to Hart House Margaret's suggestion. Margaret's contact. The policy was substantial. $500,000. Noah was the primary beneficiary. Of course. But there was a clause I'd barely noticed at the time if Noah was unable or unwilling to claim the benefit. It would pass to the secondary beneficiary, Margaret Hart. I'd signed it. Exhausted from a particularly brutal week of night shifts, I'd signed whatever they put in front of me. Noah had been oddly quiet that day. I remembered now. His hands had trembled slightly as he added his signature. The memories kept flooding back as I navigated the empty basement corridor. Last week, I'd noticed strange transactions in our joint account. Automotive consultation for $300, emergency home maintenance for $500. When I'd asked Noah about them, he'd been evasive. Mom's handling some repairs, he'd said. Don't worry about it. But the maintenance wasn't at our house. I'd checked, and we hadn't taken either car to any shop. My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret. Where are you? Dear Noah is worried. Let me drive you home safely. Another buzz. This time Noah. Mom says you're not feeling well. Stay there. We'll come get you. They were coordinating, my husband and his mother, discussing my movements like air traffic controllers. The thought made bile rise in my throat. I remembered last Tuesday's conversation now with horrible clarity. Margaret had called while I was getting ready for my shift. Evelyn, dear, you really should take better care of that car. When did you last have the brakes checked? They're fine, Margaret. You can't be too careful. I know a wonderful shop, Ridgeway Auto. Very discreet, excellent work. I could arrange everything. You wouldn't even need to be there. I'd brushed her off, but she'd persisted. 3 calls in 2 days about my brakes. My perfectly functional brakes. The basement office door appeared ahead. Ethan had left it unlocked. Inside, the small room smelled of coffee and old paper. His desk was military neat. Everything squared away except for a laptop sitting open. Its screen showing security footage paused on a familiar figure. Margaret, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. Curtis Hale, according to the file name. The timestamp read 11:37 p.m. Saturday night. In the frozen frame, a white envelope passed between them. More files were open on the desktop. Bank transfers from the church's bereavement fund, small amounts, nothing that would trigger attention. 500 here, 300 there, all authorized by Margaret Hart, church council member for 15 years. The funds went to maintenance and care, but the receipts led to Curtis Hale's personal account. I clicked through more evidence Ethan had compiled. Curtis Hale's record assault charges dropped on technicality. Mechanic certification, specializing in custom modifications. A series of text messages between a burner phone and a number registered to Ridgeway Auto. Make it look natural. Brake failure. Rural Route 49. She takes it every night after the 2 a.m. shift. Route 49. The winding road between St. Braden and Ashford Heights, with its steep drops and lack of guardrails. I drove it 5 nights a week, usually the only car on that stretch at 3 a.m. My phone rang. Noah. Evelyn, where are you? Mom's really worried. She says you've been acting strange lately. The stress from work. Noah, I interrupted. Did you know? Silence. Then, quietly, know what? About the insurance policy. About the real reason your mother wanted it. Evelyn, you're scaring me. Mom said the night shifts have been affecting your judgment. Maybe you should take some time off. I hung up. Whether he was complicit or merely weak didn't matter right now. What mattered was that in approximately 12 hours, I was supposed to climb into a car with sabotaged brakes and drive down a dark, winding road. But they'd made one mistake. They'd involved Ethan Rowe, assuming the church treasurer would rubber stamp the fund transfers without question. They hadn't counted on a former military police officer with a habit of checking everything twice. Ethan appeared in the doorway, his 6-foot frame filling the space. Even in his Sunday suit, he moved with military precision, closing the door silently behind him. They're looking for you upstairs, he said, pulling a USB drive from his pocket. Margaret's got half the congregation convinced you're having a breakdown. How did you know? I asked, my hands shaking as I took the drive. I've been watching the church's finances for irregularities, small amounts disappearing from the bereavement fund. At first, I thought it was just miscategorized expenses. He moved to the laptop, pulling up more files. Then, I installed security cameras in the parking lot, my own initiative, not church-approved, been concerned about vandalism. The screen showed another angle of last night's meeting. Margaret's face was clearly visible as she handed over the envelope. Curtis Hale counted the bills before pocketing them. That's $5,000, Ethan said. I checked the sequential serial numbers against the church's last cash withdrawal. Perfect match? But why would Pastor Collins... He doesn't know. Ethan's jaw tightened. Margaret convinced him you've been unstable, told him you've been making threats, acting erratically at work. She even provided a letter from a concerned colleague at St. Braden. I bet if we checked, that colleague doesn't exist. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. The public prayer request wasn't just preparation for my death, it was establishing a narrative. Troubled nurse, stressed from night shifts, increasingly paranoid. When my brakes failed on Route 49, everyone would shake their heads sadly. We saw the signs. Poor Noah. Thank God he has his mother. There's more, Ethan continued, clicking through files. The insurance policy you signed. Look at the fine print. He zoomed in on a clause I'd never noticed. In the event of accidental death within the first year of the policy, the payout doubled. $1 million. The policy was 11 months old. She's running out of time, I whispered. The church's annual audit is next month, too, Ethan added. I'd have caught the missing funds then. She needs this done now. My phone buzzed incessantly. Messages from Noah, from Margaret, even from church members. Praying for you. Your mother-in-law is so worried. Take care of yourself, dear. The sacred space of New Dawn Fellowship had become a stage for Margaret's performance. The congregation, unwitting extras in her murder plot. "I've backed everything up," Ethan said, handing me a second USB. "Cloud storage too, encrypted, but we need official law enforcement. Detective Lyle at Ashford PD, he's solid. Former Marine, he'll take this seriously." "Why are you helping me?" I asked suddenly. "You barely know me." Ethan's expression darkened. "Because I've seen this before. Not exactly this, but close enough. In Afghanistan, a contractor tried to stage an accident to collect on insurance for local workers. I caught it too late then. 2 good men died." His hands clenched. "Not happening again on my watch." Through the basement window, I could see feet passing by congregants heading to the fellowship hall for coffee hour. Normal Sunday routines while my life unraveled below. "Pastor Collins needs to know," I said. "He does, but not yet. If Margaret realizes we're on to her, she might accelerate the timeline. Right now, she thinks you're panicking, playing right into her narrative. Let her believe that." Ethan pulled up another document. "Curtis Hale is scheduled to complete the brake work at 2 p.m. today. Your car is supposed to be at your house." "Right." I nodded. "In the garage. Margaret has a key." "Of course she did. She'd insisted on having copies for emergencies when Noah was unemployed." Another red flag I'd ignored. "Here's what we do," Ethan said, his tactical mind already working. "You leave here through the basement exit. Take an Uber to the police station. Don't use your car under any circumstances. I'll watch Margaret. Make sure she stays at coffee hour. I've got a friend at Ridgeway Auto who owes me a favor. He'll document everything Curtis does." "What about Noah?" Ethan's expression softened slightly. "From what I've seen, your husband's guilty of weakness, not conspiracy. Margaret's been controlling him with money his whole life. But that's a problem for after you're safe." He showed me one more file. This is from 3 weeks ago. Church council meeting minutes. Margaret proposed increasing the bereavement fund budget, citing anticipated needs in the congregation. She was literally planning your funeral expenses. The violation of it plotting my death while sitting in God's house made me nauseated. This woman who'd pretended to care, who'd sat beside me at countless Sunday dinners, who'd called herself my mother. She mentioned Route 49 specifically in the text, I said. "How did she know?" "Your phone." Ethan interrupted. "Has she ever had access to it?" I thought back. "She borrowed it last month. Said hers was dead and she needed to call Noah." "She probably installed a tracking app. Check your location services." I scrolled through my phone settings. There it was. Family Safety Tracker, installed 4 weeks ago, sharing my location with Mom Hart. The basement door rattled. Someone was trying to get in. "Evelyn." Noah's voice, muffled through the wood. "I know you're in there. Mom saw you go downstairs. Please, you're scaring everyone." Ethan moved silently to the door, holding it shut. He mouthed, "Back exit. Now!" I slipped through the emergency exit into blinding sunlight. The back parking lot was nearly empty, most congregants parked in front. My hands shook as I ordered an Uber, selecting a pickup point 2 blocks away at the old pharmacy. Can't let them see me getting into a stranger's car. That would only fuel Margaret's narrative of instability. The walk felt endless. Every car that passed could be Noah searching. Every shadow might be Curtis Hale. My phone vibrated relentlessly. "Margaret, sweetheart, we're all concerned. Let me help you." "Noah, please answer. Mom thinks you're having a breakdown." Unknown number. "Mrs. Hart, this is Ridgeway Auto confirming your 3 p.m. pickup." 3 p.m. They'd moved up the timeline. I deleted the tracking app and turned off location services entirely. Let them wonder. The Uber arrived a beat-up Honda with a chatty driver who mercifully accepted my excuse of a migraine and drove in silence. During the 12-minute ride to the Ashford Police Department, I watched the familiar streets pass by, wondering if this was the last normal day of my marriage. Even if Noah wasn't actively involved, how could we survive this? His mother had tried to kill me, and he'd been ready to believe I was crazy. The police station squatted on Main Street like a brick toad, uninviting but solid. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over scuffed linoleum. I asked for Detective Lyle. "He's in the field," the desk sergeant said. "Can someone else?" "Tell him Ethan Rose sent me. It's about attempted murder." That got attention. Within minutes, I was in an interview room, and Detective James Lyle walked in mid-40s, close-cropped hair, eyes that missed nothing. "Ethan called," he said, sitting across from me. "Said you'd have evidence." I handed over the USB. For the next 30 minutes, I walked him through everything while he reviewed the files, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "We'll need to move fast," he said finally. "If they've accelerated the timeline." His phone rang. "Lyle." "Yes." "Where got it?" He hung up. "That was Ethan. Curtis Hale just entered your garage." My blood froze. "But I have the only opener." "Side door. Lock was cut. Your neighbor called it in as suspicious activity." He stood. "I'm sending units now. We need him caught in the act." Another call came through. Lyle listened, then put it on speaker. "Detective, this is Officer Martinez. We're at the Hart residence. Suspect is under the vehicle. Appears to be working on the brake lines. Should we move in?" "Negative. Document everything. Wait until he's finished and attempts to leave." "Noah's not home," I asked. "According to Ethan, your husband and mother-in-law are still at church, organizing a prayer circle for your well-being." The irony was suffocating, praying for me while paying for my murder. Lyle's phone buzzed with texts, photos from the scene. Curtis Hale, clearly visible under my car. Tools spread out. A container of brake fluid sitting open, presumably drained from my lines. He was methodical, professional. This wasn't his first time. "Detective." Officer Martinez's voice crackled through. "Suspect is finishing up. He's..." "Wait, he's placing something under the car." "What kind of something?" "Small device, possibly a tracker, or a way to monitor when the car starts moving," Lyle muttered. "So they know when she's on the road, when she's approaching Route 49. My phone rang. Noah again. This time I answered, putting it on speaker at Lyle's gesture. "Evelyn, thank God. Where are you?" "Somewhere safe." "This is insane. Mom's worried sick. She says you've been under too much stress, that you're imagining things." "Noah, did you know she had a key to our garage?" Pause. She said she needed it. In case of emergencies." "Did you know she increased my life insurance?" "That was for us. For our future." "Did you know she's your backup beneficiary?" Silence. "Noah." "She said it was standard, in case something happened to both of us, for funeral expenses." Detective Lyle scribbled a note. "Keep him talking." "Noah, where's your mother right now?" She went to the bathroom. Evelyn, please come back. We can talk about this." "Is Pastor Collins there?" "Yes, he's leading the prayer circle." "Evelyn, you're scaring me." "I'm scaring you." My voice cracked. "Noah, check your mother's texts. Check her calls from last night. That's invasion of privacy. Your mother is trying to kill me. Noah." The words hung in the air. I heard his sharp intake of breath. That's crazy. Mom would never." "Garage side door. Noah, go look at it, right now." "What?" "The lock's been cut. There's a man under my car sabotaging the brakes as we speak. Police are watching him." I heard footsteps, presumably Noah moving. Then Margaret's voice in the background. "Where are you going, dear?" "I need to check something." Noah's voice, distant from the phone. "The prayer circle is about to start. Your wife needs our support." "Mom, did you hire someone to work on Evelyn's car?" Dead silence. Then Margaret's voice, different now, harder. "She's poisoned your mind." "Hasn't she?" "This is exactly what I was afraid of. The night shifts, the stress, she's becoming paranoid, delusional." "Mom, just answer the question." "I'm trying to protect you, Noah, from her, from what she's becoming." Detective Lyle gestured urgently. On his phone, a message from Martinez. Suspect leaving garage, moving to intercept. The sound of sirens erupted through Noah's phone. What? Noah's voice. Those are police cars, I said. They're arresting Curtis Hale right now. The man your mother paid to cut my brake lines. Detective Lyle's phone lit up with updates. Curtis Hale is in custody. He had the modified brake components in his van. Your car's being towed to impound as evidence. Through Noah's phone, I could hear commotion. Margaret's voice, shrill now. This is ridiculous. I'm calling our lawyer. Mom! Noah's voice was small, broken. What did you do? I protected you from that woman who keeps you away from your family, who works all night and sleeps all day, who refuses to give me grandchildren. By trying to kill her. Don't be dramatic. I was ensuring our family's financial security. Even Detective Lyle's expression shifted at that admission. He gestured to another officer. Get units to the church. Now. Noah, I said into the phone. I need you to listen carefully. Step away from your mother. Ev, I swear I didn't know. The insurance. Yes, but I thought, God, I'm so stupid. We'll deal with that later. Right now, I need you to keep her there. Can you do that? She's trying to leave. Don't let her drive. She's a flight risk. I heard shuffling. Then Noah's voice. Stronger. Mom, give me your keys. Don't be absurd. Your keys. Mom, now. Detective Lyle was coordinating with his team. Judge Morrison signing the warrant. We've got Hale's phone full of texts from a burner, but the tower pings put it at Hart House. Financial forensics is pulling the church records now. An hour crawled by. Then Lyle's phone rang. Detective, this is Agent Chen from Silver Prairie Mutual's Fraud Division. My stomach dropped at the name, but Lyle didn't notice my reaction. We've been investigating irregular beneficiary changes. Margaret Hart attempted to modify the policy again this morning at 11:47 a.m., trying to remove Noah entirely. While she was at church. Mobile app. She was trying to make herself sole beneficiary. The change was flagged and frozen. It violated our cooling-off period requirements. Another piece of evidence. Margaret had been planning to cut Noah out entirely, probably sensing his weakness. Ethan arrived at the station, bringing Pastor Collins with him. The pastor looked devastated, aged 10 years in the past 2 hours. Evelyn, I'm so sorry, Collins said. She showed me emails, supposedly from your colleagues, saying you'd been making threats. She said she was concerned for Noah's safety. I should have verified. She played you, I said, surprised at my own calm. She played all of us. Ethan handed over more evidence. I went through 5 years of church finances. Small discrepancies going back 18 months. She's been building this fund since Noah lost his job. She planned this for over a year. I couldn't comprehend that level of calculation. The job loss was her opportunity, Lyle said. She finally had financial leverage over both of you. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won, my son will never choose you over me. She still has her phone, I told Lyle. He immediately called the units at the church. Suspect is texting threats. Secure her phone as evidence. The next update came 20 minutes later. Margaret had been arrested in the church fellowship hall, in full view of the congregation she'd manipulated. She'd tried to claim I was framing her, but the evidence was overwhelming. Curtis Hale, facing serious time, had already started talking, admitting Margaret had hired him to create an accident for $20,000 5 now, 15 after. We need to examine your finances, Lyle said. See if she had access to accounts that could cover the full payment. I thought about our joint savings. Noah's investment accounts his mother helped manage. She had access to everything. We'll freeze it all pending investigation. Noah arrived at the station at 4:15 p.m., looking destroyed. They put us in separate rooms for statements. I could see him through the glass, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Part of me wanted to comfort him. The larger part wondered if our marriage had died the moment he'd chosen his mother's money over standing up for us. Ridgeway Auto was rated at 445. They found the work orders, all backdated, all paid in cash. The owner claimed ignorance, but his cooperation fell apart when they found the second set of books. By evening, the full scope was clear. Margaret had methodically planned my death for months. The brake failure would happen on Route 49, where I'd either go off the cliff or hit the concrete barrier at fatal speed. She'd already drafted the obituary, found in her home computer. "Beloved nurse tragically lost," it began. "There's something else," Detective Lyle said as the sun set outside the station windows. "We found searches on her computer. How long before life insurance is incontestable?" Accidental death statistics nurses. Route 49 accident history. Each search was another nail in her coffin, but one stood out. "She searched how to comfort a grieving son 2 weeks ago," Lyle said quietly. She was preparing to play the supportive mother. 3 days later, Wednesday's evening prayer service arrived. I chose this battlefield, deliberately the same sanctuary where Margaret had begun her performance. I would end it. The church was fuller than usual for a weeknight. Word had spread through Ashford like wildfire. Margaret Hart arrested, the attempted murder plot, the betrayal that ran through the very foundation of New Dawn Fellowship. Some came to pray, others to gossip. All would witness the truth. I sat in the third row, the same spot where it had all begun. Noah wasn't with me. We were staying in separate places while lawyers sorted through the wreckage of our lives. Ethan sat 2 rows behind, a silent guardian. Detective Lyle was there too, in the back, watching. Pastor Collins looked haggard as he approached the pulpit. The last 3 days had shattered his confidence. He'd been Margaret's unwitting accomplice, and the weight of it showed in every line of his face. "Before we begin tonight's service," he started, his voice lacking its usual commanding presence, "I need to address what's happened in our congregation." The sanctuary fell silent. Even the children seemed to sense the gravity. "I failed you all," Collins continued. "I failed Evelyn Hart most of all. I allowed myself to be manipulated into using this sacred space to enable evil." My phone vibrated. A text from Margaret's lawyer. "My client wants to meet with you." I ignored it. She didn't get to control the narrative anymore. Collins was still speaking. "I've spent 3 days examining our church's financial records with Ethan Rowe and law enforcement. What we found?" He paused, struggling. "Well, we found systematic theft disguised as charity. Money meant for grieving families was diverted to fund attempted murder." Gasps rippled through the congregation. Someone whispered, "How could she—" "Mrs. Hart has requested to address the congregation via a letter from jail," Collins announced. My blood boiled. Even now, she was trying to manipulate. "I will not read it," Collins said firmly. "She has no voice here anymore. Instead, I've asked Evelyn Hart if she would like to speak." I hadn't planned this, but I stood. Each step to the pulpit felt like walking through water. When I turned to face the congregation, I saw familiar faces twisted with shock, curiosity, pity. "4 days ago," I began, my voice steadier than expected. I sat right there, confused and terrified as Pastor Collins announced I'd be facing legal difficulties. I had no idea what he meant. Margaret Hart did. She'd planted that seed, knowing that when I died in a car accident hours later. You'd all remember that announcement. Poor troubled Evelyn. You'd think. At least she's at peace now. The sanctuary was tomb silent. Margaret counted on your trust. She counted on the fact that a grieving mother-in-law would never be suspected. Who questions a sobbing woman at a funeral? Who investigates the one comforting the widower? I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the church's AV system. Ethan had shown me how. "This is from the security footage." The screen behind me lit up with the parking lot video. Margaret and Curtis Hale, clear as day, the envelope passing between them. The congregation watched their trusted church councilwoman pay blood money in the very place they came to worship. 30 pieces of silver, someone muttered. "She sat beside me," I continued, "held my hand, knowing she'd paid to have my brakes cut. She prayed for my soul while planning my death. Noah entered through the side door. Our eyes met across the sanctuary. He looked hollow, aged a decade in 3 days. The investigation has revealed more, I said. $17,000 stolen from church funds over 18 months. Fake receipts, fraudulent vendor payments, all to finance my murder. Ethan stood up. As treasurer, I take responsibility for not catching this sooner. I've submitted my resignation. No. Pastor Collins interrupted. You uncovered this. You saved a life. The church needs people like you now more than ever. There's more, I said. The hardest part coming. Margaret didn't work alone in the financial manipulation. The crowd stirred, sensing fresh scandal. 3 church council members signed off on the irregular transfers without proper review. They've been removed pending investigation. Those 3 families sat frozen, exposed. Their negligence had nearly cost my life. My phone buzzed again. This time, Noah was texting. Can we talk after, please? I looked at him and shook my head slightly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I came tonight to reclaim my story, I said. Margaret tried to write my ending tragic accident, grieving family, insurance payout. But I'm still here, still breathing, still telling the truth in the place where her lies began. Pastor Collins returned to the pulpit as I walked back to my seat. New Dawn Fellowship will be implementing complete financial transparency. Every transaction will be public. Every council decision recorded. Never again will trust be blind. The service continued, but the atmosphere was electric with tension. When Collins called for prayer requests, no one spoke at first. Then, from the back, a voice. I pray for Evelyn Hart's healing from this betrayal. I pray for Noah Hart to find strength. I pray for our church to recover from this poison. One by one, voices rose. Not the manufactured concern Margaret had orchestrated, but genuine community support. It should have felt healing. Instead, it felt like standing in the ruins of something that could never be rebuilt. As the service ended, people approached me carefully, offering condolences for something that hadn't quite happened, the death of my trust, my marriage, my sense of safety. Detective Lyle caught my arm. She made bail, house arrest with ankle monitor, but she's out. My blood chilled when, 2 hours ago, she's prohibited from contacting you, but my phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer that, Lyle warned, but I knew I had to. One final confrontation before tomorrow's plan. I answered the call on speaker, with Detective Lyle recording. Hello, Margaret. You poisonous little... She caught herself. Even now, she was calculating. You've destroyed our family. No, Margaret. You did that when you paid to have my brakes cut. I was protecting my son from a marriage that was killing him slowly. You, with your night shifts, your refusal to give me grandchildren, your constant pulling him away from his family. Your son is a grown man who you've controlled with money his entire life. Silence. Then, colder. He'll come back to me. He always does. The congregation hadn't fully dispersed. Many lingered, and when they realized what was happening, they pressed closer. Ethan connected my phone to the church's sound system without asking. Margaret's voice filled the sanctuary. You think you've won, she continued, unaware of her audience. I'll get the best lawyers. Temporary insanity. Grief over my husband's death. No jury will convict a grieving widow who just wanted to protect her son. Margaret, Pastor Collins said loudly. You're on speaker. The entire congregation can hear you. The line went silent for 3 heartbeats. Good, she finally said. Let them hear the truth. That woman, she spat the words, seduced my son, isolated him, worked nights to avoid being a proper wife. I did what any mother would do. Any mother would commit murder, I asked. I was saving him. The mask had finally slipped completely. The congregation stood frozen, witnessing the real Margaret Hart, not the devoted churchwoman. but the narcissistic manipulator who'd weaponized their faith community. Detective Lyle stepped forward. "Mrs. Hart, you're violating the no-contact order. This call is being recorded and will be submitted as evidence." She laughed, high and bitter. "Evidence. You want evidence. Check your precious Evelyn's work history. 3 patients died on her shifts last month. 3. Maybe she's the real killer here." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Those had been trauma patients from a massive pile-up. We'd fought for hours to save them. "Those were victims of a drunk driver," I said steadily. "We did everything possible." "Did you? Or were you too tired from your precious night shifts, too distracted by your failing marriage?" Noah suddenly grabbed the phone from my hand. "Mother, stop." "Noah, my baby, I knew you'd stop." His voice was steel. "Those patients, I know about them because Evelyn came home crying. She held the hand of a 16-year-old girl as she died. She stayed 3 hours past her shift to comfort the families. How dare you weaponize their deaths? I'm trying to show everyone who she really is." "You're showing everyone who you really are," Noah said. "Dad would be disgusted. He'd be ashamed of what you've become." That broke something in Margaret. She screamed an animal sound of rage and grief that echoed through the sanctuary. "Your father would understand. He always understood. We talked about it before he died, about how you needed protection from women who would use you, drain you. Dad died 2 years ago. Mother. You started planning this 18 months ago. Don't you dare use his memory to justify attempted murder." Ethan had pulled up something on his laptop. He showed it to me, Margaret's credit card records. A charge from 6 weeks ago. Consultation fee to a company called Resolution Services LLC. A quick search revealed Resolution Services was a front linked to multiple accidents across 3 states. "Mrs. Hart." Detective Lyle spoke directly into the phone. "We've just discovered your payment to Resolution Services. We know you researched multiple methods. This wasn't temporary insanity. This was premeditated, with backup plans." The line crackled. Then Margaret's voice. Different now. Quieter. Deadlier. "You all think you understand. You think this is about money or control. But I've already lost everything. My husband is dead. My son has chosen that woman over me. My reputation is destroyed." A pause. "I have nothing left to lose." Lyle was already on his radio, calling units to Hart House. "Margaret." Pastor Collins tried. "Please don't do anything. I'm not going to prison, not for protecting my family, not for being a good mother." The line went dead. Lyle ran for the door, barking orders into his radio. "All units to Hart House. Possible suicide risk. Code 3. But I knew Margaret better than that. This wasn't about self-harm. It was another manipulation. She wanted us racing to save her, to prove we still cared. "Wait," I called to Lyle. "Check the ankle monitor." He pulled up the tracking on his phone. "She's not at home. She's heading north on Route 49. Route 49, where I was supposed to die." "She's going to stage something," I said. "Make herself the victim. Drive off the road where I was meant to crash. Claim I somehow caused this. That the guilt drove her to—" My phone rang again. This time, it was Noah's number calling mine, but Noah was standing right beside me. I answered. Margaret's voice. "I have your husband's phone. Dear, amazing what you can do with a spare key and determination. Did you know he's been recording your conversations all those times you complained about me, criticized me, said you wished I would just disappear?" My blood froze. I had said things in anger, in private moments of frustration. Those recordings will paint quite a picture. The daughter-in-law who drove her mother-in-law to desperate measures. "Mrs. Hart," Detective Lyle said, "return to your home immediately. I'm going to end this where it was supposed to end. Route 49, mile marker 17, the exact spot where Evelyn's brakes would have failed." Her voice was sing-song now, unhinged. "Come watch if you want. Come see what you've driven me to." The convoy of police cars screamed toward Route 49, but I knew we wouldn't make it in time. Margaret had planned even this, the final act of her twisted performance. Detective Lyle's radio crackled. Visual on suspect vehicle. She's stopped at mile marker 17. Standing outside the car, appears to be waiting. The church parking lot emptied as everyone followed. This had become Ashford's dark spectacle, the culmination of Margaret Hart's descent into madness. When we arrived, the scene was surreal. Margaret stood at the exact spot where my brake failure would have sent me through the guardrail. Her navy dress, the same one from Sunday, whipped in the wind. Police cars formed a semicircle, lights painting everything in red and blue. "Don't come closer," she shouted, though she held no weapon. Only Noah's phone, held high like a talisman. I have all the recordings, everything she said about me. The jury will hear how she pushed me to this. Noah stepped forward, but I grabbed his arm. "Don't. This is what she wants. Mrs. Hart." Detective Lyle used the megaphone. "Step away from the edge." She laughed. "The edge? I've been at the edge since my husband died. Since my ungrateful son chose her over his own mother." Ethan appeared beside me with a tablet. "I've been checking those recordings she mentioned. Noah's phone backs up to the cloud. There are recordings, but..." He showed me the files. "They're all of her, telling Noah how to manipulate you, discussing the insurance, planning your schedule tracking. She'd been recording herself planning my murder." "Margaret," I called out. "No megaphone needed in the mountain quiet. The recordings are uploading to the police server right now. Every word you said about killing me." Her face changed, the triumph sliding into confusion. "No, these are conversations where I said I was tired, said I wished you'd give us space. Normal things any daughter-in-law might say." I stepped closer, despite Lyle's warning gesture. "You recorded yourself, Margaret." "Every planning session with Noah where you told him I was unstable. Every call where you discussed the insurance. Every moment you rehearsed your grief for after my death." The wind picked up, sending her gray hair wild around her face. For a moment, she looked like what she was, a desperate, delusional woman who'd destroyed everything she claimed to love. "You're lying," she whispered, but doubt had crept in. Noah's phone in her hand lit up with an incoming call. The caller ID was visible even from where we stood, Ridgeway Auto. "That'll be Curtis," Detective Lyle said calmly. "He's agreed to testify. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence." Margaret's legs seemed to buckle. She sank to her knees at the road's edge, Noah's phone falling from her grip. The fight drained out of her like air from a punctured tire. "I was a good mother," she said to no one. "I was a good mother." The arrest was anticlimactic. No struggle, no final dramatic gesture. Just an old woman in handcuffs, mumbling about ungrateful children and stolen futures. They added attempted violation of a restraining order, theft, and electronic surveillance to her charges. As they led her to the patrol car, she looked back at Noah one last time. "I forgive you," she said, as if she were the victim. Noah turned away. The crowd from church had watched it all from behind the police line. Their faces showed a mix of horror, satisfaction, and something else, relief that the poison had finally been drained from their community. Pastor Collins approached me. "Evelyn, I want you to know that New Dawn will cover any counseling you need. It's the least we can do." I nodded, too exhausted to respond properly. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only emptiness. Noah stood apart from everyone, staring at the spot where his mother had knelt. "She really would have killed you?" "Yes. And I helped her. Not knowingly, but I gave her access. I was weak. Yes." He flinched at my blunt response. Can we try to rebuild?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who'd chosen his mother's money over protecting his wife. Maybe that man had never existed except in my imagination. "The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow," I said quietly. "Your mother was right about one thing: this marriage was already dead. She just chose the wrong victim to bury." The next morning's Ashford Gazette ran the headline, "Church Treasurer Uncovers Murder Plot, Saves Nurse's Life." Below was a photo from the security footage Margaret passing blood money in God's parking lot. I returned to work the following week. My colleagues had questions, but they also had my back. The hospital administration offered me day shifts, but I declined. I wasn't going to let Margaret steal my career along with everything else. 3 months later, Margaret Hart pled guilty to attempted murder, avoiding trial in exchange for 15 years. She looked smaller in her orange jumpsuit, her gray hair flat without its usual rigid styling. She didn't look at me during the hearing, just stared at Noah, who'd come to support me, not her. Curtis Hale got 5 years. Ridgeway Auto lost its license. The church implemented Ethan's new financial controls, becoming a model for transparency that other congregations began to follow. Noah and I divorced quietly. He moved to another state, starting fresh where the Hart name meant nothing. I heard he was in therapy, finally addressing the lifetime of manipulation. I still drive Route 49 5 nights a week. Sometimes, at mile marker 17, I think about the life that almost ended there, but I don't slow down. I have patients waiting, lives to save, proof that Margaret Hart failed. She wanted to write my ending. Instead, she wrote her own. The handcuffs clicked shut at exactly 8:43 p.m. According to the police report, the number seemed significant somehow, like counting backwards. Margaret's time running out, in the sanctuary where she'd performed her concern, where she'd held my hand while planning my death. Justice had finally been served. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts on this tale of betrayal and justice. Your engagement helps these important stories reach others who might need to hear them.